On today's episode, it's time to get into Philipp Kurashev's report card and some predictions for round two of the Stanley Cup Playoffs.
You're Locked On Blackhawks, your daily podcast on the Chicago Blackhawks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Locked On Blackhawks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, I am your host, Jack Bushman. You can go and give me a follow on X at Jack Bushman2. Make sure as well to go and follow my Strictly Blackhawks account at Talkin' Hockey. That way you can get all of the latest Blackhawks news and updates. And just a quick reminder to everyone watching this on YouTube right now, like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff helps me out tremendously in growing the show. If you're listening to this on an audio platform right now, such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, whatever it may be, make sure you're constantly downloading all of those latest episodes. It's 100% free, won't cost you anything. You can rate and review the show as well if you like what you're listening to on a daily basis. And last but certainly not least, got to let you know today's episode is sponsored by Monopoly Go. Put on your game face and download Monopoly Go right now for free on the App Store or Google Play. All right, good afternoon, everyone. Again, thank you all for joining me on another episode of Locked On Blackhawks, your one-stop shop for all things Chicago Blackhawks. Happy Monday. I hope everyone's weekend treated them wonderfully. To open things up on the show here today, it's time to get into my third report card for the Chicago Blackhawks here in the 2024 offseason. I've already broke down Connor Bedard and Seth Jones seasons and dished out a grade for their performances this year. Make sure to go and check out those shows if you haven't done so already. You can easily find them on the 2024 report card playlist on the Locked On Blackhawks YouTube channel. Make sure to hit that subscribe button while you're there if you haven't done so already. But today, up next is none other than 24-year-old forward Philipp Kurashev, who just finished up his fourth full-time NHL campaign with the Blackhawks after being a fourth-round selection for them back in 2018, which is actually a pretty notable feat in and alone of itself, right? Philipp Kurashev, for being a fourth-round selection, made the leap to the NHL level rather quickly, got to see some good things out of him in his first couple of seasons, but he hadn't really put it all together yet in his time as a member of the Chicago Blackhawks. We had seen some flashes last season. The 2022-2023 campaign was probably his most effective at the NHL level, but still left you with a little bit something to be desired, because you'd see the speed bursts, you'd see the playmaking from time to time, but the lack of consistency was really jarring for Philipp Kurashev, and I feel like that was the biggest weakness in his game, was the lack of consistency. How one game he'd go and look like one of the Blackhawks' better players, but wasn't able to kind of string those outings together all that frequently. But this year, he made the most of his opportunity, man. And what I think is most impressive was, it's not like he came into training camp this year handed a top line role along with Connor Bedard. No, that was actually Taylor Hall's job. That's what the Blackhawks went out and acquired him for from the Boston Bruins as a former number one overall pick himself. Likely to be the line mate for Connor Bedard all year long in his rookie NHL campaign. That was Taylor Hall's job coming into the year. And then that other winger spot was really kind of up for grabs. And it was a little bit of a revolving door there early on in the year, even when Taylor Hall was healthy. But as soon as Taylor Hall went down, Philipp Kurashev got an opportunity up there on the top line with Connor Bedard, and he grabbed that thing by the horns and absolutely ran with it, man. What an impressive season that this kid put together. And I think the biggest difference was the consistency. We finally saw him everything culminate together, and he wasn't just doing it once every week or two. No, he was stringing together really good outings and certainly showing more in his toolkit than I ever gave him credit for. And it was really fun to see the impressive outbreak of a season that Philipp Kurashev had this year with the Blackhawks. Getting into the numbers, played in 75 games for the Blackhawks, basically had career highs all across the board. 18 goals, his previous best the year prior was 9, along with 36 assists when his previous best was 16 the year before, so more than doubled his previous career best outing. And then 54 points out of Philipp Kurashev when his previous season high was 25 the year prior. Unbelievable stuff out of Philipp Kurashev, and I was really hoping late in the season, because It's not like he was cooling off down the stretch. No, he was really playing good, consistent hockey for the Blackhawks for a majority of the season, and more times than not looked like their second most talented offensive player outside of Connor Bedard. And there was a chance for him to potentially reach 60 points if he was able to kind of keep things going at the end of the year. Fell a little bit short of that mark, but still, my oh my, 54 points in 75 games out of Philipp Kurashev this year. Put a big smile on my face. He was a minus 44 on the season, which, a lot of people are going to be talking about that along with Connor Bedard's terrible plus minus. And yes, I do agree. Like with Connor Bedard, Philipp Kurashev absolutely needs to work on the defensive side of things, but that number is absolutely inflated because of the ice time and the role that he was playing with the Chicago Blackhawks, one of the worst teams and one of the lowest offensive outputting teams, the lowest offensive outputting team in the entire NHL. That's bound to happen. Chipped in for 6 power play goals, which is a career high. His previous most was 2. Shot 14.1%, and he hadn't shot over 8% since his rookie year. So I do think that's probably something that'll come back down to earth a little bit next season, but nice to see Philipp Kurashev finding the back of the net more frequently. And I think also having more belief instilled in him that he can be, a 15 to 20 goal scorer in this league. He now has that confidence after seeing what he did this year in terms of the goals. Averaged 19 minutes and 1 second of time on ice. It's nearly 2 minutes more than he had the year prior. And he was in a top 6 role for the most of 2022, 2023, even though his production wasn't close to as consistent as it was this year. Head coach Luke Richardson really gave him that opportunity 2 years ago for the majority of the campaign, but clearly getting more and more trust in Kurashev this season and giving him more opportunities as he absolutely deserved. Chipped in for 38 block shots and 27 hits. Not really numbers that are always and ever going to be of note for a player like Philipp Kurashev. And then in terms of the analytics, had a 49.3 Corsi for percentage. It's the second best of his NHL career, the best that he's posted since his rookie year, and was on the ice for 73 goals for to 90 goals against at 5-on-5, and had an 87.4 on ice save percentage, which isn't very good. And again, I think a little bit of a reminder that especially if he wants to remain as a top 6 player for the Blackhawks, which I don't know if that's going to be the long-term plan for him, but if he wants to stay there, he's going to have to be a little bit more reliable on the defensive side of things than he is right now. But sorting through all the good and bad for Philipp Kurashev this year, there was a lot of good Blackhawks fans. He was pretty dynamite this year. And I think the first thing that stood out again is just he has more in his bag than I ever gave him credit for, than I think anyone had ever really expected. Again, not sure if that's going to lead him to being a true top 6 guy for the Blackhawks long-term in this rebuild, but he certainly has more to offer than anyone expected. And the upside is prevalent there because of how he went and produced these numbers. It's not like Connor Bedard was carrying him along. Yes, playing with Connor Bedard certainly helped Philipp Kurashev's numbers take a little bit of a rise, but he played a good transition game along with Connor Bedard. The speed was evident all year long. The playmaking in transition, the chemistry that he established with Bedard as well. Whenever those guys had an odd man rush, it felt like by the second half of the year, they knew what to expect. They knew where the pass was going. They were starting to open themselves up for one-timers. They became a really dynamic duo together in transition, and it wasn't just Philipp Kurashev being carried by Bedard. He played the right type of game to make the most of this situation along with Connor on that top line. I also love to see goal scoring take an uptick. I think that's just going to give him more confidence and more belief in himself in that department moving forward. And yeah, just looked more often than not like the second most talented player on the Blackhawks this season. The biggest thing, the biggest improvement to me in Philipp Kurashev was the consistency. There was lots of consistency this year. Weren't a lot of 5 or 6 game stretches where he looked like a ghost, which had kind of plagued him in years past. No, he was there ready to roll night in and night out. And basically anytime the Blackhawks did anything good or had a good offensive output, Philipp Kurashev was probably a leading factor in that. So lots and lots of good stuff out of Philipp Kurashev this year. In terms of the bad, I don't really have all that much to say. I think the biggest thing, like Connor Bedard, is he clearly needs to work on things defensively, and right now, he just doesn't really offer all that much outside of the offensive zone when he's not, opening himself up for a shot or creating something for Connor Bedard or one of his other line mates. There's not a whole lot of value to his game there, right? Because he doesn't play on the penalty kill. He's not like in elite back checker. I think that's something that he can get better at this offseason. And he doesn't really have a lot of size. It's not like he goes to the dirty areas and has a lot of success there. He doesn't go to the front of the net very frequently. That's just not the style he plays, and I understand that. But I do think he's going to have to either keep up this offensive production or make himself valuable in some other situations, because it does still feel like, even though Philipp Kurashev had this phenomenal season, it does still feel like he's a little bit one-dimensional right now because of his skill set, because of his lack of size. So this offseason, I just think it's really important for him to continue to round out his game and just become a little bit more reliable on the defensive side of things. But all in all, as far as a grade, I feel hard-pressed not to give Philipp Kurashev an A. He exceeded all expectations I think anyone had for him this season, man. 54 points in 75 games. After seeing him score 25 the year before, I just did not think that leap or that progression was coming this season out of Philipp Kurashev. So I'm going to give him a flat A for his performance this season. I thought it was interesting. 57% of the voters on X voted for B. 33%, the second most popular option, was A. But I just figured there were going to be more A's there for Philipp Kurashev's performance this season. Go and jump in the comment section down below right now. What do you think about that? Do you think Philipp Kurashev deserves an A? Do you agree with the voters on X, who the majority of them gave him a B? Let me know your thoughts on that down below in the comment section. And also make sure to go and follow at Talkin' Hockey on X so you can vote on all of these polls that I post on each of the Blackhawks players before I kind of divulge my thoughts upon them here on the Locked On Blackhawks podcast. So I'm giving Philipp Kurashev an A. Let me know what you have to say on that matter in the comment section down below. All right, there is my report card, my third one of the offseason on 24-year-old winger Philipp Kurashev. Coming up in just a moment here, I'll get into a preview and some predictions for the second round of the Stanley Cup Playoffs, baby. But first, I got to talk to you all about eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience is what brings home the championship trophy, and it's also what keeps your ride or die alive. And eBay Motors has everything that you need to maintain your vehicle and to level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. Plus, with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or else you'll get your money back. So make sure to go and check out ebaymotors.com, because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. Again, that's ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only and exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit is available only to U.S. customers. The Locked On NFL mock draft is available and out right now. Yes, I know the NFL draft has already gone down, but I still think it's interesting to go back and listen to the entire 6-episode series on Locked On NFL Draft to hear who the Locked On local experts picked for every NFL franchise, along with live reactions from local college football experts and even the fantasy football angle for this upcoming season. The Locked On NFL mock draft is available now on Locked On NFL Draft on YouTube and wherever you may be listening to your podcasts. Segment 2, with the second round of the Stanley Cup Playoffs now actually officially underway, is Game 1 between the Carolina Hurricanes and the New York Islanders went down yesterday afternoon. I thought it would be fun to get into a little bit of a preview of the second round here today, talk about how my bracket is going so far, and get into a little bit of predictions and such. And let me tell you, the Stanley Cup Playoffs, as it never fails to do, has just been spectacular here. A couple of excellent Game 7s over the weekend. The Boston Bruins and the Toronto Maple Leafs, me and all my buddies watching together on Saturday night, all tailed the Bruins money line on FanDuel. Make sure to go and check out our sponsor, the fine folks over there at FanDuel. All tailed the Bruins, came out clutch. I was on the Dallas Stars as well in Game 7. They came through to knock out the defending Stanley Cup champion Vegas Golden Knights. Stanley Cup Playoffs is always must-see TV, and excited to be watching more series open up later here this evening. But getting into the second round matchups that we have, starting out west, the last two teams from the Central Division, the Dallas Stars and the Colorado Avalanche. I had both of these teams advancing to meet each other here in the second round. So starting off my bracket pretty solid. And I also have the Dallas Stars winning over the Vegas Golden Knights in 7 games. So I smacked that series to kick things off. And pretty important I did, because I got the Dallas Stars winning the Stanley Cup. So them falling behind 2-0 on home ice was very sketchy, but super glad they were able to come back and come through with a big Game 7 victory on home ice. Things are not going to get any easier for them, though, in the second round, as they're taking on the 2022 Stanley Cup champion Colorado Avalanche, who looked like a runaway freight train in that first round against Connor Hellebuyck and the Winnipeg Jets. I predicted that the Avalanche were going to win this series in 7 games, but they made quick work of Winnipeg, taking them down in 5. And they're big guns, man. Boy, are they star-studded. Nathan McKinnon, Mikko Rantanen, Cale Makar. It is a scary, talented roster that the Colorado Avalanche have right now, and clearly rolling on all cylinders and have some confidence going for this huge Central Division showdown. I'm sticking to my guns, though, sticking to my prediction that I had in my original bracket. Not going to be changing things up at all, because knock on wood, things went pretty well for me in the first round. So hopefully I can keep that going here in the second round. I'm sticking with the Dallas Stars, my Stanley Cup champions, taking down the Colorado Avalanche in another classic of a series in 7 games. And then the second series, the other series left in the Western Conference, the Vancouver Canucks and Edmonton Oilers. I had both of these teams in my bracket meeting up here in the second round. I had Vancouver correctly taking down Nashville in 6 games. I had Edmonton taking down Los Angeles in 6. They obviously got the job done in 5. Sticking with my guns here as well. I'm going with the Edmonton Oilers over the Vancouver Canucks. I think Edmonton's just got the mo right now, and they've kind of been firing for the last 4 or 5 months. I expect this to be... I don't know if it's going to be over as fast as I predicted when the playoffs first started, but I don't think it's crazy. I'm going to stick with Edmonton over Vancouver in 5 games. I just think Edmonton is the better team. They got more confidence, and Vancouver is obviously banged up, especially with Thatcher Demko being out. It was a great story for them in net in the first round. I don't think they're going to get away with that against Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, and the Oilers. So I'm going Edmonton in 5 games to take on the Dallas Stars in the Western Conference Final. Then moving out east, we got the Boston Bruins and the Florida Panthers. Another series that I correctly predicted. I had Boston in 7 over Toronto. So not only having the Bees money line in Game 7, it kept my bracket perfect. And I also had Florida taking down the Tampa Bay Lightning. I had them doing it in 6 games, though, and they got the Lightning out in 5. This is going to be an epic rematch of a series that we saw in the first round last year, where the Bruins had that 3-1 advantage. The Panthers come storming all the way back, and they just rode that wind all the way to the Stanley Cup final. And Boston is going to be wanting to get a little bit of revenge here, considering how things ended, losing Game 7 on home ice last year. They almost dropped another 3-1 series lead against the Toronto Maple Leafs, but I think getting that victory is going to allow them to relax, take a deep breath, and I think they're going to be ready to go and overcome the Panthers here this time in the playoffs. I'm sticking with my prediction, the Boston Bruins over the Florida Panthers in 6 games. And then last but certainly not least, the series that's already underway with the New York Rangers holding a 1-0 advantage. Again, a series that I correctly predicted. I went 8 for 8 in my first round series of my 2024 Stanley Cup playoff bracket. Hopefully I'll be able to keep it going here, but I love that I also had the Carolina Hurricanes over the New York Islanders in 5 games. I also had the New York Rangers taking down the Capitals in 5 games, but they gave them the old series sweep. Well, the Hurricanes had a little bit more class and hit the Islanders with the gentleman's sweep. But this is going to be an awesome series, an awesome Game 1 yesterday. My prediction isn't looking very good now. I went bold here at the beginning of the playoffs. I took Carolina over the Rangers in 5. So they're obviously down 1-0. They're going to have to win the next 4 for that series prediction to be right. But hopefully I'll be able to predict all 4 of these series correctly, as I did in the first round. Again, it's been a phenomenal start to the Stanley Cup playoffs, and I honestly feel good about all those picks. Even though the Rangers are down and I don't think the Hurricanes are going to win in 5, I still like the Hurricanes winning that series. I do like Boston over Florida still. I love Edmonton over Vancouver. And I do got Dallas as my Stanley Cup champs, taking down the Colorado Avalanche. So should be an excellent second round. I'll be covering it here on Locked On Blackhawks, talking about all the series as we go on throughout it all. And then once we get into the conference finals, I'll be getting into a preview of that as well as my predictions. So It's been a lot of fun following so far. I know the rest of the Stanley Cup playoffs is not going to disappoint. It absolutely never does. And I'm looking forward to see who's going to be coming away with the trophy. We know it's not going to be the Vegas Golden Knights for a second consecutive season. It's going to be fun to see who the last team standing is here in a couple of weeks, less than probably a month now, right? Yeah, probably a month away from figuring out who's going to be winning the Stanley Cup. What a time to be alive, and less than 24 hours away to finding out where the Blackhawks are going to be picking in the 2024 NHL draft. All right. There is my picks and preview for the second round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. Coming up in just a moment here, Blackhawks fans. Don't go anywhere, because before I wrap things up, I do got to talk about the Rockford IceHogs falling short in Game 4 to get knocked out of the Calder Cup Playoffs. But first, I need to talk to you all about Monopoly Go. We've all been there, either as a player or as a fan. It's halftime, and the scoreboard is not looking good. You're feeling low, not sure whether you or your team can come away with the win, but that's when you dig deep, lift your head up, and say to yourself, it's time to get back in the game, pull off some bank heists, and take as much of my friends' money as I possibly can. That's right, the smash hit mobile game Monopoly Go lets you compete with your friends to get the most riches and the biggest empire. It's the Monopoly you love, but on your phone anytime, and with tons of new twists, including leaderboards to compare your progress to your buddies. And play on countless dynamic Monopoly boards, make your friends bankrupt by smashing their landmarks with a wrecking ball, and charge other players rent for your iconic properties. And you can even work with your friends to crack open community chests and win tournaments to get extra rewards and climb the leaderboard together. So get back out there, put on your game face, and download Monopoly Go right now for free on the App Store or Google Play. Back here on the Locked On Blackhawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Again, if you're watching this on YouTube right now and haven't done so already, please do me a huge favor. Go and hit that like button. Comment down below. Let me know who you got winning the Stanley Cup this year. Who's going to be the last team standing when it's all said and done? And also, let me know what grade you would give Blackhawks forward Philipp Kurashev for his performance this season. And also, make sure to go and check out the new Locked On Sports Today, because Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. And Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts from Locked On, plus our national shows covering every single league. So make sure to go and check out Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. Segment 3, before I let you all go and enjoy the rest of your days, I am quite sad to say the Rockford IceHogs once again have been bounced from the first round of the Calder Cup playoffs as they fell to the hands of the Grand Rapids Griffins, losing Game 4 on home ice with a 4-2 final. And things started off promising for the IceHogs. They go back to Rockford. Obviously, they weren't able to capitalize on a very good late stretch in Game 3 to force overtime. The Griffins come out and score the OT winner. That puts the IceHogs with their backs against the wall, but fortunately, they were going back into their own building, going to have some rowdy and fans buzzing on their feet in attendance for them. And the game started off well. Lukas Reichel put the IceHogs ahead 1-0 with his first goal here of the series. Nice to see Reichel finally put one in the back of the net himself. I said after Game 3, the IceHogs wanted to come back in the series. Lukas Reichel really had to rise to the occasion. He did that early and also later in this one, but the Griffins would strike back twice in the first period to grab the 2-1 advantage after 20 minutes. They also held a 2-1 advantage after 40 minutes as well. So the IceHogs down to their final period. What can they not do? It's allow another goal to let their deficit get even bigger. They fall behind 3-1 early on in the third. Fortunately, Lukas Reichel, as I said, he was going to have to come up clutch for them. He scored his second goal of the game to put the IceHogs down by just one with 13 minutes to go. But that wound up being the final goal that the IceHogs scored this season. The Griffins would go on to add the empty netter and take this one 4-2 at the BMO to give the IceHogs their third straight first-round series loss. They've lost in the first round of the Calder Cup playoffs each of the last 3 years. Fittingly, the only 3 years that I've been covering them here on the Locked On Blackhawks podcast by an AHL TV, hoping for a long and successful postseason run out of the IceHogs. And I thought this year was going to be different. I thought they were really shaping up to make a good competitive long run. They had an excellent finish to the regular season, won 23 of their final 30 games. Both goaltenders were rolling. Honestly, though, I think what really hurt them is not having Cole Gutman in that forward group. He was a huge focal point to all the success that they had towards the end of the year. Won the AHL Player of the Month for April, I believe it was. It was either March or April, but regardless, he was the first IceHogs player to do that in nearly a decade. Didn't get to play in any of the 4 games here in the series, and it just felt like the IceHogs were missing that game breaker a little bit, and I really wanted Lukas Reichel to do that. He got off to a good start to the series, but was a little bit spotty, not as productive throughout the course of the series that I had hoped that he would have been, and I felt like they missed their leading man in Cole Gutman. They really could have used him here. I thought his absence was felt, especially in the series. But there were opportunities for the IceHogs. Don't get me wrong. The Griffins were the better team for a majority of these games, but the IceHogs had their chances. They just couldn't capitalize on them. Game 1 in overtime, really, I think kind of doomed them. They had an opportunity to go and snag home ice back by getting that game 1 win, but, falling and losing that one and then going in, having to play 2 in Grand Rapids, put them in an unideal situation. They weren't able to get the overtime winner in game 1, weren't able to take advantage of scoring 2 huge goals in under a minute to tie things up and force overtime in game 3. The Griffins pull that one out, and then going back to the BMO Center for this one on Sunday night, having an opportunity to force game 5 and maybe give the Griffins a little bit of something to think about on their flight back. Just weren't able to get enough sustained pressure, weren't able to do enough. So unfortunate, but a good experience nonetheless for this group. A lot of young players on this team getting their first or second taste of playoff action at the professional scene, and that's only going to bode well for a lot of these guys as they try to take this next step. A super young decor for the IceHogs, right? So many young guys, a pretty young goaltending duo as well. And I think there were a lot of positive takeaways altogether in this season. Cole Gutman was phenomenal. Ethan Del Mastro, phenomenal. Nolan Allen looked sharp. Rem Pitlick was super effective when he went down there. Colton Dock was a very effective player when he was healthy for the majority of this season, and both Jackson Stauber and Andrew Comesso, I think, gave the organization something to be happy about, and going to be an interesting decision on Jackson Stauber here this offseason, but not the ending we wanted, certainly. Sad that didn't get to see the IceHogs go further into the Calder Cup playoffs here, but again, a very good season for multiple different reasons. And it's going to be fun keeping up with this IceHogs team these next couple of years because there's only going to be more and more talent coming through their way. So it'll be fun to dive back into everything going on with the Rockford IceHogs, along with the Chicago Blackhawks. The organization is officially done with their games for the 2023-2024 campaign. It's been a lot of fun. Excited to talk about both of these teams getting back in game action later on this fall, but it will be even more fun probably talking about the loads of hypotheticals that we can discuss throughout the course of the summer. I'll be doing that and a lot more right here on the Locked On Blackhawks podcast. All right, that is going to wrap up today's episode of Locked On Blackhawks. As always, thank you all again for joining me on the show. Please make sure to go and follow Locked On Blackhawks for free right now, wherever you may be listening to your podcast, if you don't already. And also go and subscribe to the Locked On Blackhawks YouTube channel. That way you can get the latest episode as soon as it gets uploaded each and every day. As always, I'm your host, Jack Bushman. Go and give me a follow on X at Jack Bushman2. Make sure to also go and check out my Strictly Blackhawks account at Talkin' Hockey. That way you can get all of the latest Blackhawks news and updates. So until tomorrow's episode, everyone enjoy the rest of your days. It's draft lottery day tomorrow. I got an exciting episode coming out. Make sure to keep your eyes peeled for that. Until then, everyone enjoy the rest of your days. That's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Blackhawks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.